It's through our authenticity that we fully embody our unique purpose, allowing us to love deeper, to serve wider, and to reflect God's creative intention for our lives.
A dream of a lioness came to prepare me, and she gave me words that I would need to embody soon, but I didn't really understand that yet. So I drummed, I painted, and when the moment came, the message was waiting for me.
What if true authenticity is about recognizing the voice of Jesus, calling you by name, and then following him back to who you were always meant to be?
So in the dream, I'm in a house that is not mine, and it sort of reminds me a little bit of my friend's ranch house. There are it's large and sprawling. There are rooms all over. There are patios on different sides of the house and doors that open to the outside. And I'm with some others, and they're just nondescript humans. I don't know who they are, but my dog is with me, Fritz, and so are my 2 cats. And we're outside at first, but then I see a male and a female lion that are outside nearby, and they're moving closer to us. So we go inside, but the doors are really flimsy and mostly made of glass, and I can see the lions outside. The male lion isn't really paying attention, and he's just sort of sauntering around this field in front of the house, and he exudes a lot of confidence and just has this relaxed demeanor. But the female lion approaches the glass door where we are just on the other side, and she's curious and eager, and she moves with intention towards us. But she never shows aggression, and even so, I'm still really afraid because this is a large wild cat. And I would say that curiosity is her most dominant characteristic. I'm not frozen, but I definitely feel impaired and afraid, and I feel like I'm just ill-equipped to face this lioness and just to ensure the safety of my pets. And so I start looking for my dog Fritz, and I'm worried that he's going to be hurt by the lions. And my 2 cats also should have been nearby, but suddenly I can't find them either, and I start worrying about their safety. And this lioness is huge and just right up against the glass, and the door even is moving as she's sniffing the glass and pressing up against it. And then the dream ends. So at the time of this dream, there were 3 major questions or unknowns that were sort of alive for me. Number 1, my Christian faith as I had known it for many years was feeling a bit shaky, and in a lot of ways felt like it was unraveling after what I would say was my intuitive understanding of God. My felt sense of God had expanded during my first psilocybin ceremony. And also, as I was reading the book, Setting God Free by Sean O'Leary, it was really challenging everything that I had believed for most of my life. And then secondly, I'd just been invited to preach at my church about reclaiming authenticity. And now I felt like I was sort of doubting whether or not I belonged in the pulpit. And then the third thing was also that I was searching for a new vocation after selling my business, and just really sensing that art and spirituality were going to be involved with my next chapter, but I couldn't really see how. So each of these 3 questions were that glass door that the lioness was pressing her golden face against. And I feel like that the lioness represents my spiritual curiosity, just not being content with domesticated answers any longer, and really seeking the sacred essence beyond what I'd been told to believe. So she was my spiritual authenticity itself, and really was asking me to step into the pulpit, not as this kind of like well-behaved type of person, the good dog, trying to please, but as this lioness that was ready to roar through my human voice. And so the calm male lion that was in the dream showed me what becoming could look like. So it was sovereign, it was unhurried, and really fully himself, and his presence even seemed to rearrange the landscape, not by force, but by simply being. So the message here was to be courageous, to press up against the glass, to let them see who I really am, curious and gentle. The message said, they may be afraid of this power because it challenges who they are. It cracks them open the way that I've been cracked open. But my job is to lead them back home, not to be devoured by this force, but to embody it ourselves. So this dream wasn't a warning, it was an invitation. Do not fear your curiosity, because it is calling you towards your dharma, your purpose.
At age 16, when I first noticed I was romantically attracted to girls instead of boys, I began a decades-long wrestling match with God. And it was during this time that I believed there were just two broad choices for my life. I could be myself, or I could be Christian. I didn't see a world where I could possibly be both. So I know most of you listening to this are not wrestling with the same kind of dissonance as I was, but most of us are hiding something. And many of us have just learned to live with the dissonance and denial. Maybe it's not your sexuality. Maybe instead it's your doubt, your grief, your fear, or even some longing that you've just never spoken out loud. Maybe it's a dream to start your own company, or maybe it's something on your bucket list you just never told anyone. So as we turn to the scripture, I invite you to hold in mind whatever that thing is for you.
Using Robert A. Johnson's dream interpretation process, the final step in the process of interpreting a dream that is meant to show your dreamer that you're listening is to perform a simple, solitary, and subtle ritual. For this ritual, I wanted to drum my djembe, and really because I felt like I wanted to create a tribal sound to call the lions and the lionesses in. And so I wouldn't say that I normally have this kind of warlike spirit within me, but this day I felt this pull to really embody this warrior in some way. The lioness to me gave me the spirit of a warrior. And her spirit was really calling others to a spiritual awakening. And so I played the djembe, and the beat rose and fell, and I wasn't performing, I was just awakening something ancestral within me and beyond me. So I have this whole thing with animal skulls, as you can see. I've got different other art pieces nearby. And days later, after having this dream and interpreting it, I realized that the lioness wasn't done with me yet. And I'd done the ritual, but I also felt called to create a piece of art from the lioness dream. And I decided to go ahead and stick with the skull motif. And so I started out with sketching the skull of the lioness on a piece of tracing paper first, and words just started to form around her as I was doing this, and they just felt like guideposts or a map of sorts. All that she represented in me just poured out onto the page. This curiosity and courage, this vulnerability, which really is the core of my creativity and spiritual strength. Presence, spiritual authenticity, becoming, my roar, a rising voice, and a sense of inner calm. And I knew she was calling me to speak my truth without apology. She was calling me to step fully into my spiritual authenticity, even when it disrupts expectations. So she was calling me to lead others, not with control, but by embodying this power gently and openly. And she was showing me how to become the lioness who leads the pride back home to themselves. So this artwork became a mandala, an expression of who I am and what I aspire to become. I don't rush through this process. And this is a small painting, but this small painting of my lioness became this visual reminder of that call, but I still didn't really know why yet. I was just trusting. So just days after finishing the painting, I faced a situation that required me to embody everything the Lioness had shown me. It was a difficult conversation. There was pain and conflict with people that I really love. And there was also this temptation to defend myself, to shut down, and to really hide my power. But I noticed the painting at the precise moment, and I called on the Lioness spirit to help me embody my power gently and openly. Not to roar with aggression in this situation, but to show up with that gentle curiosity and fierce truth. And I chose vulnerability. I chose to be seen. And then it just hit me how funny this is, that my psyche gave me a dream, a message to my future self. I interpreted it, I painted it, but I didn't truly have it until the moment I needed it. I received this message from myself, but only when I became the person who could receive it. So this dream prepared me for something I couldn't even see coming, and it was helping me practice trusting my natural instincts. So fast forward to August. Just 3 months after I had the dream, the day had come for me to preach my sermon. And the night before, I barely slept. I was anxious, having anxiety dreams, somatic feelings of this fear of rejection and of being seen. But that morning, I moved through my daily practices, which are Qigong, meditation, and prayer. And I felt like, my hands are steady. My heart may be pounding, but I am ready for this. And it was during my prayer time that came this pivotal moment. As I paced around my studio, I zoned in on the Lioness, that little sketch with the words all around her skull. And every single word of that message was relevant for this exact moment. So I prayed through the words one by one. It was then that I realized I am not being chased by a predator. I am safe. In fact, I am the predator. I am the Lioness. Then I walked to the pulpit, not hiding my power, but offering it as a blessing. The room was completely full. Hundreds of eyes were on me.
Oh, get this the right height. That's fine. It is, such an honor and a gift to be standing here and to be able to share the word with you today, but also to share some of my personal stories.
As I said it, the truth sank into my soul. I felt this deep sense of inner calm. And as I continued to speak, I felt as if I was both in my body and floating above my body at the same exact time. It was so strange. But this was the moment that I realized this is what my Dharma feels like.
When I was 30 years old, I married a man I had been dating for 2 years. And I felt like I had finally rid myself of that gay thorn in my side. And I did and still do see my 5-year marriage to him as a sincere commitment and sincere love. But even in that sincerity, my soul felt muted. It wasn't something that I noticed at first, but over time, a deep discomfort began to surface, and it just became harder and harder to ignore. I had this inner longing for something more alive and true, and it was about more than my sexuality. I knew there was more to life than what I was experiencing. So I stepped back and I examined my life, and what I realized was that although I hadn't lost my faith in Jesus, I had lost myself trying to keep it. Paul's letter to the Ephesians says this in Ephesians 2:10, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." So this Greek word for workmanship is called poiēma, which means a poem or a masterpiece. And you can easily see that our word poem comes from this Greek word. Okay, thinking of myself as a poem or masterpiece created by God, that's a lot more inspiring. That speaks my language. And this is why I asked the question earlier of, have you ever read a poem or seen a piece of art that moved you? Or maybe you heard a song that makes you cry. Or maybe you saw a photograph or a documentary that enlivened you or enraged you. Good art has the ability to wake us up and inspire us. And there's a beautiful line in the song. She says, "I am his poetry, he won't waste a word." And as I listened and reflected on those words, I noted how poetry usually flows out slowly, and every word of a poem is placed with intention. And it's in this unfolding that poetry has that ability to move us and inspire us. So that reminds me to be patient with my becoming and recognize there's no need to rush, because if we read poetry fast and just, tried to get to the end of it, we'd miss the gift of it. We were made to create this kind of feeling in others. God intended for us to be the kind of art that moves and inspires. We are God's masterpiece, not just another mini-me or a copy. The kind of art that moves people to tears was not created by AI, and it's not a fake dupe of the original. It is the magnum opus of its creator. Why would we mute our voice, our color, our rhythm, our unique perspectives when we were handcrafted by the creator of the universe as a living poem? When Paul says, "You are God's poiēma," he's saying, you were never meant to be mass-produced. You are the original, signed by the artist. And because you are the original, your value isn't in your external polished surface. It's in your origin story. It's in who you belong to. It's about who the artist is, who calls you by name, and how honestly you reflect his creative intention. Because you are his poiēma, not a counterfeit, a living masterpiece.
The response to this was overwhelmingly beautiful. Afterward, I spoke with about half a dozen people that approached me, and the first was a dad who said his teenage daughter, who identifies as a pansexual, wanted to meet me. This kid shook my hand and looked at me like I was a hero as I encouraged her to be authentically herself, and in a church of all places. I looked over and I saw my wife's face was covered in tears. My pastor's eyes were leaking too, and I had heard later that there was one woman that left within about 3 minutes of my sermon, gripping her thick Bible tight and marching out the back door. But another woman also left 3 minutes into the sermon. Only this person went straight back to the youth class to bring her daughter back in to listen. So this wasn't just my story. It was an invitation for everyone in that room to stop hiding their power. Dreams speak to us in symbols, preparing us for what we can't yet see. And ritual is how we listen back. When we give our attention to these symbols and messages and work with our dreams, we say yes to another level of our becoming. The ritual matters to activate and integrate the dream into our real life. As I took each step, it created the path. So taking these steps in faith ensures that when the moment comes, we'll be ready if we're listening. The Lioness for me was a mandala. It was a prophet in some ways because she came to prepare me for something in the future. She gave me the words to describe the energy and the openness that I would need to consciously embody in this major Dharma moment.
Listen for that whisper in your soul. Maybe you even hear it or sense it right now. Because he is calling. He's speaking your name. Not the name the world gave you, and certainly not the name that shame calls you. It's the name that he whispered over you when you were created in love and purpose as his creative masterpiece, a living poem.
You are not lost. You are becoming. The Lioness is your power, your curious, alive, and rising voice. She presses against the glass not to devour, but to awaken. So let them see you. You are not here to chase the path. You're here to become the one who walks it.